Tanya is like, I've heard it compared to a recipe book. It's different parts you put together, thanks so much, in order to make it work. But it doesn't work like a typical book of just like, okay, read through it, you got the ideas. It's like an ongoing manual and a guide. It's teaching you how to have a relationship with yourself, which is that's what psychology tries to do. It doesn't really know what it's doing. So, yeah. You know what psychology means? That I showed some Amen. You know what it means? Logi is study of. Psychos is soul. The things that on the one hand, psychology is. Figure out how it works, and I can create medicines and approaches to try to do it. No problem. The soul, I can't. And so modern day psychology is just like, well, there's more going on to the person to see if you can figure it out through random trial and error in different ways. They've come up with different ideas that seem to work for people. And there's a truth to it. If you read something in psychology and they've done research and technique that works, there's a truth. In God's world, it works. There's something to it. But they don't really know why. So it's a very interesting phenomenon, is that what we do, because the creator of the universe said, I made people, I made Jews, I made Gentiles. Most of my clients are not Jewish. And the idea of having two parts works by them also. But like, we can take these ideas and use them far better than they can, because we understand the core, which is the same idea of civics. If you understand what you're achieving and accomplishing, the core, when you do Torah mitzvahs, so then you connect to it so much more. You have a passion for it and an excitement for it. Okay? So, yeah, what's up?
What's the point? Gentiles have two parts, meaning they
have two souls.
They have Yetzer Tov also?
They have two souls. Let's just leave it. They have two souls. They don't have a chelik Elokim knowledge, but they have a soul that enables them to do their Shabbat mitzvahs and learn the Torah that's connected to their Shabbat mitzvahs, and they can conceive of themselves as two. And then you start reading Buddhist philosophy, and they're like, there's the ego self and the authentic self. It's two. There's officially a nefesh hasichlis in between, which is just like, that's the me that's like checking out these two souls. But I'm going to mix a bunch of ideas together because I don't know how much time we'll get through. But there's ideas about how to go through time, how to learn it, how to connect with it, and then there's there's idea, how do I go through it, okay? And then there's how do I take this personal, like how do I live it, okay? So I'm going to touch on both. Feel free to interrupt me, and we're not going to have enough time. And if you want to continue, so we can definitely go through it. This is a map that I created based upon different books, okay? Tanya needs a map, and the reason is it's kind of like a table of contents, right? If you've read a book or a textbook and you're trying to find different materials, or the index in the back of a book, Tanya's meant to be this like lived guide, and it's coming to answer different questions and challenges that we have. So a person should definitely read through it, but like someone, you'll go to a mishpir or a guy and say, I'm really struggling with this, and goes, oh, chapter 26. Look, I'm having a hard time with my doubt, chapter 28. It's just like, and I've had this experience. I've sat with somebody who's just like pointing out chapters. So it needs a map, because to really connect with Tanya, I think you have to have a basic sense of what's found where. But if you look over here, there's different ways to connect, okay? First of all, there's different sections and parts of the Tanya. So generally speaking, right? There's a one-word summary for every chapter, and then there's a little bit more of it there. But it's great, if you're going through it, you kind of get a feel for where you are. It also creates this kind of structure in your mind. So that's like, as I'm looking for things, you can definitely learn through it. You can definitely take a commentary and learn through it. It's definitely helpful. But then it's just like, the Alter Rebbe, anybody know why the Alter Rebbe wrote Tanya? Anyone know?
Yeah. One of the reasons he writes is because he can't answer everyone individually, so he's
right.
The book to answer.
And then what's the other reason? When he does answer them, what's the problem?
What's the problem if he does answer them?
Yeah.
What's the problem with writing a book, you ask me?
What's the next part? No, you're right. It's like, I don't have time to answer everybody. But there was another problem also that people were forgetting.
You're forgetting.
Yeah. But everything is important. Like it's famously known that the Alter Rebbe spent 6 weeks back and forth, we should put above or not. Meaning he spent it, here you have a tremendous soul, a tremendous tzaddik, saying, but the basic general regular man, a person is a big one. And then he spent time trying to understand it from him. Everything is meaningful and purposeful. So that's the sharp block, the introductory page talks about, what's the book about, how it's very, very doable. This whole thing should be very doable. It has to be achievable. Most people don't know the answer. How is it very doable and achievable? It doesn't feel that. Because most people don't get to 18 to 25. See the bottom of the first page? That's the answer. How is it really doable that I should do Torah mitzvahs with feeling? Right? If I can't, so the answer is over there, let's say from 9 to 17. The answer is like, well, you can meditate. But not everybody has the ability to meditate. So what's the answer? But most people don't get to 18 to 25. So there's like a whole bunch of questions asked in chapter 1. Then chapter 1 ends with how Jews are different than Gentiles. Then people, and they don't really keep going with the book. But here, you're not going to be like that. The answers are over there. Then it gets incredibly psychological over here from 26 to 34. Those are different areas where a person can totally find psychological concepts, ideas, and to connect with it. But that's how you use this, is just to have a feel for where you are, that eventually, like, you'd love to get to a place where it's like, if someone says, what's happening in chapter 12, you'd be able to say like an idea, that kind of a thing. Not memorized, just have a basic feel. But then you feel more comfortable with the book, but it's meant to be pick and choose, like it's a manual and a guide. It's like, what are you struggling with today? Is it depression? Is it tzimtzum halev? I'm heavy, I'm meditating, but I don't feel anything. To move around in different areas. So that's that. But the Tanya is, he starts off and he says, this verse in the Torah that's really not understood well. And I think it teaches a person that, like, ask your own questions. If something doesn't make sense to you, ask, if it bothers you, ask, take it personally. So this whole kikar velecha davar meod, this pasuk says it's very, very doable to do Torah and mitzvahs. Is it really? And so that's what this is coming to answer after you get past all the questions in chapter 1. I mean, that's another paper we can make, is what all the questions and answers are. But don't get hung up on it. But that's important. But then he goes on and talks about yichidus, that it's almost like a soul session. There's a book I translated. It's over here, Winning Every Moment. Do you see this book over here by Harari? It's an excellent book on Chabad and Chassidus, but it's framed as like more of a psychological session about how to work with people. I think it's a fantastic book, like what is Chabad Chassidus and what was the Alter Rebbe trying to achieve. But he says over there, Tanya, the whole relationship starts with the yechidus, a face-to-face meeting. It's like, this is my mentor, this is my guide. It even hints over there in the beginning of the introduction, it says that all the answers to all the questions can be found there, which Chassidim for generations understood it meant for all times, all generations, all of us who are reading the Tanya. It's pretty wild. I didn't really believe it until I saw the way that the Rebbe and Igros Kodesh really relates, like, it's all there, it's all there, it's all there, it's all there. It's like, okay, let me go and demand answers. But it's like, I'm kind of depressed today and it's not working. Like, talk to me. Like, that's how you go to the book. So to feel comfortable flipping around looking for different things. But the Tanya is a yechidus. The Tanya is you having a personal one-to-one meeting with the Alter Rebbe. Not only just in a general way, but each and every chapter is coming to answer a different question that you may have. And we can go through that, at another time. But it's a different way of looking at the book. This is for me, take it personally. So then let's continue. What are some other things that the Rebbe says over there as far as just understanding the Tanya? So the chapter 1, the major accomplishment in chapter 1. Okay, so we got the introduction tells us that the opening page tells us that it's coming to explain how a relationship with Hashem, which means I do Torah mitzvahs, because being a Jew is a relationship. It's not a religion. I'm in a relationship with Hashem. And sorry, I'm jumping around, but chapter 4 talks about the levushim, doing mitzvahs. And it talks about if there's no love there, then you're not really doing a positive commandment. You haven't fully fulfilled it. If there's no feeling of awe. And I said to myself when I was reading, I was like, why does it matter so much? It's like, this is a relationship. Otherwise, you want a robot, right? If you have a husband and wife, they live together, and everything she says to do, you do, and everything she says don't do, you don't do. Is that a relationship? And I would say, no, there's no connection. So God created us with this ability to feel. It's about a relationship. So the first page talks about Karav Elecha Davar Meod. This whole Tanya thing, like, keep it in your mind that this has to be very doable. So if I'm reading something that doesn't make sense, like, for example, the Rebbe himself has a footnote on this. If you look at section 38 to 40, it starts talking about intention. It starts talking about angels over there. And the Rebbe's like, whoa, what does that have to do with me? It's supposed to be Kikara Velecha Davar Meod. So feel that. If it's not making sense, something is missing. I need to understand it. But it's very doable. Being a Jew with a warm, vibrant, exciting relationship with Hashem, with passion, to be real, how are you, is totally doable. We have to bear that in mind. But then realize the book is guidance. He says every chapter is a different question. It's as if you came, and each section is a different question and answer. Like you're sitting by the Alter Rebbe trying to get answers, and to see it as such. So each chapter definitely is answering different questions. And like I said, you know who has an excellent, Shays Taub on Spotify has excellent Tanya shiurim. Hearable, understandable, basic, and he talks about this idea, how every chapter is coming to answer a different question. So this is an excellent resource if you're looking for that over there. It's called Tanya or Soul something, but you can find it over there. But then comes chapter 1, and chapter 1 really sets us up and understand you have to understand that you're two. And this is where it gets very psychological, and you realize that Tanya's trying to teach us how to have a healthy relationship with ourselves. It is talking about how to do Torah, how to do mitzvahs, and that's parts of it, but there's also parts of the day where I'm not necessarily doing Torah and mitzvahs, I'm with myself. Different thoughts, different feelings. And so the major accomplishment in chapter 1 then is this idea that sets us up for the entire rest of the book, is that you have to see yourself as two and not one. This comes up, by the way, this idea, that comes up amazing, chapter 27. Chapter 27, right? 26 to 34 is the psychology section, the depression section, if you want to go there. If you're looking to connect more, go hang out in those areas and see what he's talking about. You'll feel more like practical, down to earth, it's talking to me. But chapter 27, he says over there, a person is depressed that they're having negative thoughts in the middle of the day. And he says, well, what did you want? That's a little bit arrogant. Like, you're not a tzaddik. You're not being asked to be a tzaddik. But if you were one person and you had really great thoughts at one time of the day and then bad thoughts at the next time of the day, it'd be like, something's going on with you, you need a diagnosis. But you're two. So he says how like really practical ramifications of the fact that I'm two. I would just add, I'm just throwing it out there. If you look in chapter 6, 7, and 8 is where we meet the animal soul. And there's a famous comparison that goes on. I hope you can follow this. I know I'm jumping around. I'm sorry, I'm a little tired. But chapter 3 talks about the 10 faculties of the godly soul, right? You have intellect, you have emotions. And in chapter 3, it's very interesting. You see how precise the wording is. Anybody know the difference? You see it between the way the Alter Rebbe describes the 10 faculties of the animal soul and the 10 faculties of the godly soul? You already know the answer because you hear me say it all the time. No? So I'm going to tell you, but then I want you to go and see it for yourself and go, oh, cool. There's a lot going on here. Chapter 3, he says, hey, let's go, right? After chapter 2, he goes, first he says you have two souls in chapter 1. In chapter 2, he says, let's meet the godly soul. And he calls it the second soul because the animal soul comes in first, until bar mitzvah. So then chapter 3 is like, let's meet the godly soul. But you see it, you could see it though, it's kind of structured. At least I know where I am. If I want to go get to know my godly soul better, I know where to go. So in chapter 3, he lists the 10 faculties. He lists the 3 intellectual faculties first, and then he lists the 7 emotional faculties. In chapter 6, he does it in reverse. And so the explanation is that you can feel these two parts of you. One is kind of thoughtful, calm, clear, focused, trusting. And the way he describes it is I think about what's worthwhile in life to pursue, what's good for me, Torah mitzvahs, jobs, day-to-day life. I just see that Tanya's talking about Torah mitzvahs, but also talking about my day-to-day life. But he's over there, it's the godly soul first, where the godly soul's approach is, let's be intellectual, let's thoughtful, let's meditate on this and discover like what's worthwhile to pursue. And then my emotion will come in check. That's more of an adult type perspective. Chapter 6 says the opposite. Emotions. And he even describes chesed, gvur, and tiferes as it is in the animal soul, and each one is very childlike. Explains like a child gets very angry about things that are not worthwhile, a child craves things that are not really of value. And then afterwards, he mentions the intellectual faculties. To teach is very emotions first. And then the intellect kicks in to like, I'm already like freaking out emotionally about how I have to have this thing. Now I'm going to use my mind to like justify it and go figure out how I can go get it. Okay? If you look in chapter 9, then he says, so what's the ramifications, right? The godly soul is inside the animal soul. And then it's in the body. The animal soul is very close to the body, very embedded in the body. It's in the blood. But that the godly soul is found in the mind and in the heart. That adult part of me, I call the godly soul an adult part because of that. It's intellect first. And then I determine what's worthwhile to love, to fear, to crave. The animal soul is the opposite. Pure craving first, and then I bring in my intellect to justify and to rationalize. That's a child. It also fits. I mean, for me, to me, it's so clear because lots of psychology will talk about inner child. I'm sure you've heard pop psychology say you have an inner child. That's just like, what is this inner child? They know it's there. I mean, you could feel it, but they have no way of describing it. To me, it's the animal soul. It was all I was until I was 13. absorbing all of the experiences I went through. And now I continue to play out so many of those dynamics. And the godly soul comes online and starts talking to me at my bar mitzvah. It's got like a lot of catching up to do. You are here now to say, okay, I need some inner couples therapy. I need to figure out how to improve the relationship between these two parts. And that's what the Tanya is coming to teach you. But first, just to realize alone, I have to start seeing myself as two. I have different types of thoughts throughout the day, different type of things I want to say throughout the day, different type of actions that I want to take throughout the day. It's not all coming from the same place, which then means I go and I mess up, I screw it up. The wise thing to do is to own it, but then to say, okay, what did it just teach me? What did I learn from it? Because I'm constantly learning about myself, because what's being expressed is the relationship. So then if you look, after explaining the two souls, and chapter 9 says, these two parts are grappling with each other, right? And then he asks also the question is, why, if they're meant to fight, it's like two kings fighting over a kingdom, right? So it's just like, let them each have their own corner, and then they'll come out and they'll duke it out during the day. It says the godly soul is enclosed inside of that animal soul. The animal soul is enclosed inside of the body, very physically oriented, which also fits with the child. So it says, you see, the purpose is for them to build a relationship, for this adult part of me, this more mature part of me, to be in relationship with the child part, which fits what the Baal Shem Tov famously said, right? It used to be that people would beat themselves up. Not only did they have a harsh inner critic, they had an external critic. They would sit in the snow and sit on ants and beat themselves up, and because that's not what we do. He said the whole famous, it's in the Hayom Yom, the Azov Tazov Imo. He said the donkey is crouching under its weight, it's struggling under its weight, you have to surely help it. We need to build a relationship. And I know there's a lot of language in Tanya, like fighting and battling and warring, but we're not here to kill our Yetzer Hara. It's like when I realize there are parts of me that I need to express, especially for Bali Chuvas. There's certain things that you experienced before coming to here that are not a part of your life anymore. But there's a lot of things that need to continue to be a part of your life, or it needs to change and adjust. You can't just lop that off. It's like it rebounds back like a rubber band stretch. It comes back on you. We need to find ways to work creatively. When you experience a tiving or a craving, very often it's that, the Zohar says that the animal soul, I think it's animal soul, the Yetzer Hara, it's a koach mitaveh. It's a power of thirsting. That's not necessarily bad. We all have certain needs. Like if I'm hungry, I can go eat a pack of Skittles. I can't remember the last time I did that. But are you hungry? Are you satisfied? Eat a bunch of chips? I ate, but it didn't really work. It didn't really meet my needs. So if I do eat something proper or healthy, I have a different experience. So it's not necessarily I've got to kill this part of me. I've got to get into a relationship with it. I call the shots. Chapter 12 is a very important part of Moach Shalit Avalev. The mind rules over the heart. And as we explained, the godly soul is in the mind and the heart. This adult part of me is in the mind and the heart. It speaks mind, it speaks intellect, but also speaks emotions. It can explain why it's worthwhile to pursue and feel pleasure for certain things. And the animal soul is only in the heart. So chapter 12 is a very important part also. But so it's a whole bunch of different ideas. I hope it's not too fast. But it's this idea, I am two, I'm not one. And to begin to think of myself as two and not one. And as I experience a desire to learn more and understand what that means, to get guidance in building a relationship between these two parts, the Tanya is coming to say, check me out. I'm feeling depressed because I did a bunch of affairs, 26. I'm feeling depressed about the Gashmias in my life, 26. I'm having negative thoughts throughout the day while I'm trying to work, 27. I'm trying to connect to God and I just don't feel a darn thing, 29. It's literally like that. So what you want to do is use the map to familiarize yourself more with what's going on. So it's like how to approach it and learn from it, but at the same time realize I am two, and I'm trying to build a relationship between these two things. And we have the general promise that God made for us. It says, Eina Kadosh Baruch Hu ba betruni as briyosav. Hashem doesn't come just to bother us in our noise. He asks us to do things that we can achieve. So it's many times I feel like we can't do it, but we also felt that with the most recent challenge we had last week, and we handled that also. But this new challenge is difficult. It's harder than the previous ones, but it's karo ve'lecha hadavar me'od. I got to keep reminding myself. Everything about it is very, very doable, which is also, by the way, really powerful. Here you have this incredible tzaddik. The Alter Rebbe was a soul that had never been in the world before. Pure, pristine, incredible. And he comes and descends into the world of cravings and inner struggles, and our own inner environment is messy sometimes, a lot of static. And the Alter Rebbe is like, okay, I'm going to kind of descend into the world to help you, because Otherwise, it's like, how do you know? It's an important thing in life to know, like, am I doing well? Am I succeeding? I think a lot of people struggle with self-esteem, confidence. It's just like, I never got enough of that clarity that I was doing a good job, you know? I have clients who like never, not only were they never like pat on the back or I'm proud of you, it was just like always their faults were pointed out. So generally we need to know, or in the work world, not enough does a person take on a new job and it's spelled out clearly, hey, here's the expectations of the job. This is what success looks like. Great, then I have a fighting chance. If you don't tell me what's expected of me, then I'm constantly guessing. I have no idea. Alter Rebbe said it. You're here to be a Beinani. No one asked you to be a tzaddik. You don't have to be a tzaddik. This is chapter 27. We're here to work. We're here to put in effort. We're here to strive. We're here to achieve, like a car. You ever leave a car in the driveway for a few months? It's horrible. I know you experienced that, huh? Yeah. It doesn't run. It's meant to run. They're meant to go and meant to be used. And we're the same way. But he's explained to you the whole idea of the Beinani, which you have here from 12 to basically 15. I could have put another thing there. 12 to 15 is get to know the Beinani. And 16 and 17 is one attempt then to answer how do you do it, is you'll meditate and you'll feel love. And then that'll motivate me to do Torah mitzvahs. 18, he says, but that's not karve lecha davar me'od. That's not totally doable. I translate it as totally doable, which means I can achieve it. But if it's based on meditation, not everybody can learn, not everyone can grasp it, or it might take time. And so then he goes into 1825 and answers like, look, get to know yourself. You have this life. You're a piece of God. If I'm a piece of God, it means that there's a part of me that's just crazy to connect to God. I can't stand being distant. It's like, really, that's in me? Yeah, let's get to know it. So we don't yet know who we are. So this book is about teaching us, like, who am I? And what are the various parts, right? You know, I always thought about this when somebody's car breaks down on the side of the road and you always pick the hood up, right? I don't know what's going on in the car, but I look like, like I'm looking for something. But if I don't know what's going on or happening, I can't achieve anything. I don't see how the pieces come together. I can't fix it. The Tanya is teaching me, here's how the different parts work together. Here's what's obtainable. Here's what's doable. And in that way, it's teaching us how to have a very healthy relationship with ourselves. Along the way, it gets into different things and different parts. I think some ideas from psychology can be really helpful as far as how do I make Tanya more personal? How do I really connect to it? How do I connect to it? Not just the Tanya is written by the Alter Rebbe. It was the end of the 1700s. It's speaking about the world and the state of affairs as it was. It uses language like warring and fighting. We are all in a battle. But it's also very much, it applies to my day-to-day. It applies to so many things that I'm going through. And all my relationships with other people are affected by my relationship with myself. But at least I have an understanding of what's going on over here. I have these two parts. Anybody have any questions at this point? I could do about like another 10 minutes. Yeah? Okay. Yeah. Is that a lot? That makes sense? No? Yes? Connecting? Getting it? All right, let me see if I could share some psychological ideas just to really connect to it.
Freud or Jung?
All of them in a sense.
One over the other.
Yeah, let me throw a bunch of different ideas out there, different kind of psychological terms we may find. Okay, it gets amazing. Chapter 18 and 19 is like, okay, we all have this inherent love to God that we're not aware of, and we need to get to know it better. Like, we don't know who we really are. And so he explains, if in chapter 2, he explains the godly soul is a chelik Elokai v'mamam, it's literally a piece of the Creator. So then I can't stand or bear being disconnected from the Creator in any way whatsoever. So inherently, I have this love and passion to be connected and part of something that I'm connected to. So he explains over there in 18 and 19, explains how you inherit this. We inherited from our forefathers as part of the fact we have this soul. And he explains that it's this like fiery longing for self-sacrifice. Because he says a fact, like, we see a lot of people were given this option to convert or die. And we're like, where did it come from that they suddenly made a decision to give up their lives? They weren't so observant. So we see there's a certain fact, he says on the rove, in the majority of cases it happens, but sharing that there's like a real powerhouse within myself that I've got to get to know and learn more about. So it's interesting in chapter 19, to me, there's an aspect that it's like addictions, right? That we can slip and fall into things through bad decisions. We don't know how to handle some of our emotions. Everybody in life is either avoiding or facing something. And I would say that most people are avoiding because they simply don't know how to handle it or deal with it. All addictions, are they substances or behaviors, are about avoiding because we don't really know how else to handle those things that we feel. Now remember, you understand it now. The animal soul is the only thing really talking to me until I'm 13 years old. And it's absorbing all the things that I'm going through. A child comes into the world naturally looking for an understanding of who they are and how relationships work. From their parents, from their interactions, from their schools. Not blaming parents, but there's certain things that we picked up about ourselves and there's certain things that we're avoiding. All of the things that bring a person to say, I should check out a therapist, are because of the things that we discovered that kind of help us survive and deal with some of this stuff. But you realize it's just there's like a 7-year-old kid hanging out inside of me, desperate for my attention. So that's why I do work with people, just like, so name the feelings, I get to know it. Because like we said, chapter 6, the animal soul speaks emotions. It lives in the heart. So anyway, in chapter 19, it says over there, we can make a lot of these decisions, these avoidance type decisions, where we're not making healthy choices. If you think about it every day, you've got a certain amount of thought, speech, and action. And as you look back on the day, you made various choices throughout the day. Which of these two souls is going to express itself now? It's just a collection. So the growth is healing. Connection is about the percentage of the time that I allow my godly soul to fill my thought, speech, and action. As it increases, so then that's growth. And then the Beinoni is the person who in his garments only gets to the point where like only the godly soul. But then I'm progressing and succeeding if more and more and more throughout my day, I'm working with these two souls. I'm finding healthier alternatives to meet the needs of the animal soul, right? Like I'm switching over to healthier food. Or something very important for Bali Chuvas is what a friend of mine called breaking the safer barrier, that I sit down with a book and I can read it or translate it, or I get a pleasure and an enjoyment out of it. And my animal soul wants pleasure. You can't fault it for that. And there's nothing wrong with pleasure. If I'm not going to consciously choose and discover and develop, which is, what am I doing in yeshiva? Develop a pleasure in being a Jew, learning Torah, doing mitzvahs. Chassidus is teaching us all how powerful it is or what we're accomplishing, the why behind the what. Over there, then you see it brings much more pleasure. Pleasure is not a dirty word, but if I'm not going to consciously choose outlets that are enjoyable and pleasurable, then I'm going to slip back into a bunch of other things. So chapter 19 says something interesting. He says, the source of this hidden love is Chochmah of the soul. Okay? And he says that a person can make decisions and express their animal soul so much that they're like completely covered in klipa, but only up to Chochmah. There's like a rock bottom moment. There's a point where like, no, that's it. I can't go any further. Which is the same whole idea of addictions. There's a certain, I keep deluding myself. It's okay, I'm fine. Same thing as, you guys have heard of the Ruach Shtus. You learned in Basi Lagani about Ruach Shtus. Chapter 24, well familiar. I'm loaded with Shtus. But chapter 24, he mentions, what's the Ruach Shtus? Is that I forget about the fact that I have this crazy love to the Creator, and I think I can do whatever I want, and it's not going to affect my relationship. Totally addictions. So that's one way to apply that. That's that idea. Let me see what else I could share with you. I will tell you, though, as a therapist, I work online. I've been working as a therapist online since we made Aliyah, basically. And I work with Jews, I work with Gentiles. But just seeing that this is where all the answers are. I have yet to see a successful approach in psychology and therapy that cannot be explained well and better than the founders explain it, with the idea that we're two souls. For example, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, really popular, right? Insurance companies love it because it's really clear and strict and rigid. It has weaknesses to it. What is the idea? You sit with a person and you ask, with a client, and they tell you an event that happened. Okay, here's what occurred. And then he said, well, what thoughts came up for you as that event occurred? Okay. And then you ask them, well, what's another way that you could have responded in your thinking to that event? And so, they write it out. And it's, how could I have two different ways of responding in my thoughts to the same event? They don't know. It just works. We know there's two souls. There's two different approaches. So usually the one that's getting them in trouble is out of this animal soul. It's old patterns that we keep repeating because they're familiar. The problem with CBT is that it doesn't get emotional enough. There's an emotional reason why I keep assuming the worst about everyone or everything. There's an emotional reason. We can't ignore our animal soul. And the Alter Rebbe is coming to say, don't. Build a relationship between the two. But start by really getting to know it. But all the answers to all the questions can be found here. And that's his claim in the introduction. They call be found here. But you have to see it as, you have to see both of those. I'm in the Yechidus with the Alter Rebbe. Please give me answers. And he says, you can talk to other people. You can talk to me, Mishpiyim, rabbis, if you're not seeing it in there. But it is. But I think the idea of a map, I don't know if you guys have used a map. We should definitely try to find that map of Tanya. I don't know if you can get it in Israel. Frame it, put it on the wall. But just when you see where things are found, you can start looking into it and jumping around and realizing. But remember, each chapter is a different Yechidus. Each chapter is me coming to the Alter Rebbe with a different question, right? Do you have the same questions about your davening every day? About your Torah mitzvahs every day? It changes. As I learn something and I grow and I achieve, so now I've got new questions that come up. And the Tanya is structured in that way. You don't have to go in a particular order. But I've yet to see any of the major techniques that are out there that can't be explained very well according to the idea that you have two souls. I haven't seen it. In fact, I feel like we can understand it better because we understand really what the soul is, and psychology is study of the soul. I don't see any contradiction, though, in learning some of these ideas to help us connect more. Tanya doesn't need psychology, but psychology can't function without Tanya because they don't know really what the soul is, and yet they call it psychology, which means study of the soul. Any other questions? Any thoughts? Any ideas? I got a session in 10 minutes. Yeah.
Serious?
If you have more questions, go into it. But I don't know, have fun with the map. You know what? I'll leave you these copies so that other people can get into it. But it's like it should feel. I hope the map also helps you feel karav elecha, like this is doable. I can get into it.
It seems to talk about the relationship between Hashem and the shamans.
Yeah.
Is the room in the Tanya that talks about relationships between the person?
They're all connected. There are three relationships. There's a relationship with myself, my two souls. There's a relationship with the others, other people. By the way, I think that's the proof for therapy from the Torah. I have to love my fellow as I love myself. Well, loving myself is not so easy. But the last relationship is the relationship with the Creator. So we see something fascinating. This wows me. Like a lot of the 12-step groups for addictions will talk about a higher power, but they won't use the G word because a lot of people are traumatized by God. But our relationship as a kid with parents or with a pastor or a rabbi or something like that sets us up then for a relationship with Hashem. Think about it. I'm a small child, totally relying on my parents, trusting authority figure. Where that trust was abused, I'm really going to struggle with authority figures. So much so that in the 12-step groups, they have to call it something else, a higher power, whatever it is, in order to re-heal the relationship. What's amazing is that each of the three relationships impact each other. So I can work on my relationship with myself, and then people will treat you in accord with how you treat yourself. You will treat other people based on the way you treat yourself. Somebody who's really harsh and intense, guaranteed that that's how he speaks to himself. Guaranteed that's how he was spoken to as a kid. Think about it. You turn 13. I've been just an animal soul, an inner child, right? All of a sudden, 13, I have to become a man, right? I have to parent myself. So healing inner child work is about reparenting myself, things I got or didn't get that I need to work on. I need to be the source of meeting them. But it's like, how am I going to parent myself? I don't know how to do it. That's one of the incredible things of Tanya. If we would learn it this way, is it's teaching you how to be in relationship with yourself. And so we tend to just parent ourselves the way that we were parented. We tend to, but it's parenting in a sense. It's parenting, it's mentorship, it's brotherhood. But it's fascinating to me that we will treat other people based on the way we treat ourselves. Other people will treat us how we treat ourselves, like if they can pick up on it, or we allow people to say certain things to us without saying anything. But then as I can improve my relationship with Hashem, and all of you guys are facing that right now. You're all deeply trying to build a relationship with Hashem, which could then impact your relationship with yourself and with others. You can start wherever you want to start, where they all affect and impact themselves. But the Tanya 100% is talking about your relationship to Hashem through Torah mitzvahs. It's also talking about your relationship to yourself. It's about the Sefer Shel Beinoni, how to be a Beinoni, which is a successful life. The technical definition is that only my godly soul has access to my thought, speech, and action. But a lot of work goes into that, a healthy relationship between the two souls. My animal soul is telling me I'm hungry. Why should I beat it up? I'm not going to listen to you to drink Coke and potato chips. I'm going to feel like crap in an hour. But like, what's wrong? There's nothing wrong with that. And the two of them are in partnership. But it's definitely here that the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov, that people get confused about that. The Yetzer Hara are the emotional attributes of this animal soul. And the Yetzer Tov are the emotional attributes of the godly soul. Your Yetzer Hara can transform and become a Yetzer Tov. Would love to. And I think that's a big thing. Deep down, the animal soul wants to be connected to, wants to be taught, wants to be trained. Show me the pleasure in Torah mitzvahs. I mean, you just showed up at 13, but I've been busy, pizza and ice cream is the pleasure. Just teach me, show me. I think all of us are here to really retrain our pleasures after heavy doses and exposure to pleasures in the world. So it's a little more difficult. But that's the underneath the Beinoni who successfully only allows access of thought, speech, or action. It's not starving, beating up, and enslaving the animal soul. It's working, guiding, mentoring. It's like you think that that's pleasure, but let me show you pleasure. You guys ever read Kuntres Umayyan in the beginning? He talks about pleasure, different levels of pleasure. It's fascinating. It's like, oh wow, I've just been running after pleasure. I didn't really think about it. An incredible piece of music is really pleasurable. Our deepest achievements that we work the hardest for are the most pleasurable. Like there's some, you want pleasure? No problem. But let me teach you. And the animal soul says, great, bring it on. So the animal wants to be elevated. And that's why it's perfectly set up. When next time you feel like I can't handle this animal soul and these cravings, like, well, wait a minute. This godly soul is here to impact and inspire the animal soul and work together with the animal soul. The animal soul wants to be inspired and impacted. The godly soul speaks mind and intellect, but the godly soul also speaks emotions. That's why chapter 9, it says that the godly soul is in the mind and in the heart. The animal soul is only in the heart. It'll try to rise up to the mind to get the godly soul to get agreement. Like, let's get on board with this. But it's perfectly, that adult part within us, that's within us, is perfectly empowered or has the tools to impact that animal soul. I'm in a relationship. There's an inner relationship. There's an inner environment that's going on, and we need to get to know it and learn from it. We need to make a ton of mistakes. Don't ever be afraid to make mistakes, because that's where you learn from. That's where you learn from. Think about it. This always blew me away, and I'm going to leave you guys on this, but we can continue if you want. It blows me away. The creator, who's perfect, says, hey guys, girls, here's like 248 things I really need you to do. I would love for you to do these mitzvahs. And by the way, these 365, like, I really need you to avoid it. And when, not if, but when you screw it up, here's tshuva, which is also a mitzvah. Who gives you a key to fix it, right? If they're really crazy about catching you getting it wrong, they're not. It's about relationship, right? To really do tshuva, I have to say, like, I did bad, I'm horrible, I'm terrible. That's not tshuva. Tshuva is like, wow, God's amazing. And he asked me to do something. I didn't do it. That bothers me. I feel bad, harata, kabbalah tova lahab, I make some changes, and then I move forward. I become wiser because of my mistakes. I learn from them. It's part of the process. And then my relationship between these two souls advances. It advances. Every time you get it right, every time you get it wrong, you just learn more about your own unique parts. Because besides God, there's only one expert, or a Rabbi. There's one expert in you, which is you. We're just out of touch. We don't trust ourselves. We don't know our instincts yet. We're not comfortable hanging out inside. That's something I noticed. And then I really got to go. What time is it? A sign that a person is healthy emotionally is that they're comfortable just being on their own without a phone. I can just sit with my thoughts and feelings and just like talk with them, connect to them, learn from them, explore them. There's an amazing app, if you're interested, called How We Feel. It makes it really easy to just be like, yeah, what am I feeling right now? That animal soul is like, you ever you see at a park, kids are playing in a park, they're on the swings, they fall off the swings, they go running to the parent, they get a hug for 20 seconds, and then they're good. They're crying bloody murder. They just need a little bit of attention. Our animal soul is the same way. But it's an excellent app if you're interested. It prompts you to like just check in. What am I feeling? To build up some of the vocabulary words, because most of us don't really have emotional vocabulary. It's like happy, sad, angry. But that's it. Anyway, you should see success and enjoyment in your relationship with yourself, with these two parts. You should feel empowered to open up the Tanya and connect to it, and to learn from all of the mistakes that you made and feel comfortable to ask questions. And just, God willing, feel really empowered. This is a guide to succeeding Jewishly and in Torah and mitzvahs, and also with myself emotionally. And I should be in a good relationship with myself, which then makes me a relationship ready to connect to my soulmate. May it be soon. Chaim. Chaim.
Der Rabbi du, der Geber sind du, jeder du, okay. Lass me verbringen. Verbringen mit der Geber, verbringen mit der Rabbi. Avade in Avade is der Ei bist du. Verbringen mit der Geber, verbringen mit der Rabbi. Avade in Avade is der Ei bist du. Avade. Kisro eine wei oi reiso, bekit scho berichi khadi. Kisro eine wei oi reiso, bekit scho berichi. Kisro eine wei oi reiso, bekit scho